doesn't work as well in English. In his own poetry, Hölderlin uses this image as well, and I'll just give us one brief example here. But my point is, and you know, more to say about it another time perhaps, but that the way that he uses this image of the Blessed Islands, or the Islands of the Blessed, is connects with German idealism, idealist philosophy more generally, but as a state of oneness from which consciousness emerges and to which it might return after the fall from unity and wandering along what he calls the eccentric path that is life. So, in other words, self-awareness, self-consciousness for humans is like an expulsion from that garden or from the islands of the blessed, the price we pay for self-awareness. Yet we always long to return to find them again in another realm. Now, just a brief example here from a poem of his called Elegy, the first version of it, and it is in an elegiac form imitating Greek verse. And just my rough translation of a few lines of it. Oh, stay, sacred intimations, you pious wishes, you enthusiasms, and all you beautiful spirits who gladly linger with lovers. Stay with us until, on the islands of the blessed, perhaps with our own love poets are with us, and also where the eagles dwell in the Father's breezes. There also the muses will greet us again amazed, both strange and known to us, and the year of our love will begin anew. Unquote. So freed one day from this world of barbarians and Philistines, the poets of love will meet their own again in the islands of the blessed, in this poem. Now Hölderlin himself, this was in 1802, only a few years later, fell into his own night of mental illness, probably what we would call schizophrenia nowadays, and lived the last 30 years of his life cared for, pretty much abandoned by family and friends, but cared for by a humble carpenter's family, where he lived most of the last 30 years of his life in one room of one house. So seeking those islands in his own mind, perhaps. All right, now just briefly, a few years later, Lord Byron came to Greece in 1809 and died in Greece. Did he take my feelings? Yeah. I was just going to say that. It's only 60 kilometers from here, yes. Don't worry, I'm just going to point that out later. But thank you. Yeah. And Byron's example, as again, I would see more as historical, political, rather than the spiritual, philosophical. And I would turn here to the opening lines of his poem. It's called The Isles of Greece. And it's a lyric poem that actually originally occurs embedded in his longer narrative poem, Don Juan, as he pronounces it. Okay, here's the quotation from Byron. And it's the opening lines of The Isles of Greece. The Isles of Greece, the Isles of Greece, where burning Sappho loved and sung, where grew the arts of war and peace, where Delos rose and Phoebus sprung, eternal summer gilds them yet, but all except their sun is set. The Scian and the Tian muse, the hero's harp, the lover's lute, have found the fame your shores refuse. Their place of birth alone is mute to sounds which echo further west than your sire's islands of the blessed. Now he puts islands of the blessed in quotation marks here. And the point that he's making, as I see, is something like, you know, the islands of the blessed become an emblem of all that's been lost to Greece and Greek culture through the years of the Ottoman dominion. And, you know, Byron here alludes to this factor that these islands of Greece, including Delos, appear to have lost everything they once had, apart from the sun that still shines upon them. The Scian and the Tian muse refers to Homer and Anacreon, respectively, and Byron seems to be suggesting here that their place of birth no longer reverences them. Their spirit's been lost to Greece, and or only appreciated farther west of Western Europe. Now, this was in 1820. He wrote this at a time which Byron remained highly skeptical of the very possibility that Greece would ever rise up and independent from the Ottoman Empire. But as we know, only 4 years later, he would sail again to the Isles of Greece, waiting on, not far from here, Kefalonia and Ithaca, to receive word of where he was most needed before heading to Messaloniki, only 60 kilometers to the south of here, where he died on April 19, 1824. So we might say that Byron, skeptical as he was at one point of the possibility that Greece could ever be free again, or that the islands of Greece could be restored somehow, the islands of the blessed, this emblem of what Greece once was. In 1824, he believed enough in the possibility to come to Greece and actually die for that dream. So I would just conclude by expressing my hopes, and that, you know, we are all here in Greece on this day, in some sense, ourselves seeking those islands of the blessed, and my hope would be that we never give up that quest. Thank you.
Undergraduate Studies Program at the Department of Sociology, Ethics and Related Disciplines at Baltazar University of Applied Sciences in Papanikos, Croatia. Thank you, Olga, very much. While Olga will make my presentation up, I want to say hello, everybody, and I thank the organizer for inviting me this year. I'm celebrating. This is my fifth time being here in Greece, cooperating with Athena and with this foundation. This is second time here in Sardinia, but fifth time. Yeah. Okay, that's not important. I came from Croatia. Actually, in my vocation, I'm a theologian and a philosopher. But in a scientific way, I'm engaged with three disciplines, theology, philosophy, and economics, because unfortunately, I have misfortune to teach business ethics at a private university of business and management, and I hate it. What I like is philosophy, pure philosophy. It is Aristotelian philosophy. Therefore, I choose for this year to say something. I will use the mechanical. I don't like modern technology, though I was awarded for philosophizing and Jobs iPhone in Venice, at conference in Venice. I was awarded for the best scientific paper because I connected iPhone with the philosophy, with the ethics of identity, because iPhone, my phone, I.
Don't trust the Italians. They look at the appearance.
So, the picture is not actually a clear one, but it's inside of Croatian theater, dated from around 17th century, 1612, in the island of Paros. We call it Arsenal because it is situated within the building that used to belong to the military base. So that is for Gregory. I did it because he asked me to do something with the Croatian theater. We don't have origins. Actually, what we have a great arena and the city of Pula, but it does not belong to Croats. It belongs to Romans. So I don't want to steal and represent it like it belongs to my culture. No, we are Slavic people. We have Baščanska ploča, Baščanska plate in the island of Krk that is a certain source of our Christian roots. So we don't have actually this theatrical, historical aspects. Therefore, I choose to speak about Aristotle's The Lost Book of Poetics. Why? Because the topic inspired Jean-Jacques Annaud, the director of the movie, The Name of the Rose. And the movie was released around 1986, I was little at that time. According to the scenario written by the great Italian theorist philosopher and the expert in semiotic Umberto Eco. Unfortunately, he died 2016, and that around February. I know today because I was very sad. I like very much Umberto Eco because he wrote the best book I have ever read in the modern time, Il nome della rosa, in 1980. It was nearly 20 years after the Great Vatican Council. The Great Vatican Council changed everything in the church, but one thing did not. That thing Umberto Eco described very good in the spy novel, The Name of the Rose. Il nome della rosa, the name of the rose. And the original title of the Anotes movie was not The Name of the Rose, it was The Abbey of Crime, because the fable is situated in a Benedictine abbey somewhere in Italy, and you have two main characters. The one is the senior with, in that time, good-looking Sean Connery, and the other, his pupil, played by Christian Slater. They are invited in order to investigate very strange murders within this abbey. And the main motive of the murders was philosophical investigations related to the Aristotle's lost book. Everyone who touched the Aristotle's Poetics, because the original name is Poetics, it's a book about poetry, poetics, about theory of literature. Everyone who touched it was murdered the next day. And Sean Connery was investigating these murders. He found out that all murders are connected with reading the Poetics. Why? The old monk, very old and blind one in this old abbey, at the very end said, he put on fire a complete library. It was a brilliant library under the ground, several levels. He said, yes, Aristotle was the great, and he gave us knowledge, but yet he gave us all Christianity. Faith is the mystified, disenchanted because of Aristotle's knowledge. About he made funny out of the world by writing the comedy. He showed us that there is no serious place for belief in our society. He showed us that human being made out of God's creature is like a monkey because he can smile, he can laugh. The problem, so that is a phenomenological aspect of my investigation, published several years ago in one Croatian journal, high-rated journal. It was I made a huge investigation about this because I wanted to know why Umberto Eco chose the Poetics. Why the lost book of comedy? Because we even don't have any firm proof that Aristotle, we know that he wrote Poetics, the book of tragedy, but because the Poetics has around 26 chapters. The first 5 chapters are general, introductory. So you have chapter 6 that starts with a discussion on tragedy. And from 6 to chapter 22 is the discussion about tragedy. Then chapter 23, 24, 25, and 26 are dedicated to the epic poem. So, at the very end of chapter 6, Aristotle says, like, now about comedy we will discuss later. But this later time never shows up. So, there are scholars in 20th century specialized in this investigation related to the lost book of Aristotle, the lost book on comedy, that is Umberto Eco metaphorically says about the book, The Lost Rose. The Lost Rose is the book on comedy. So there are two approaches. The book never existed, the book might be existed. So there is, you cannot see very good, Lane Cooper translation. Lane Cooper is one of the most important specialists for poetics, Aristotle's Poetics, and this is a cover page of the book that is printed around 1922, at the beginning of the 20th century. So here is, handsome little thick hair, Aristotle. This is the second argument. The people who believe, scholars who believe that comedy existed, the book of comedy really existed, but was during the time lost. It is a Tractatus Coislinianus. Tractatus Coislinianus, named after the Count of Coislin, discovered in 10th century, very late. Imagine that. 14th century after Aristotle lived, this piece of paper discovered. But Cooper took reconstruction of the content of poetics and tried to adapt the Tractatus Coislinianus within the poetics as the lost paper on comedy. Yes, 2 minutes enough. The second scholar, very important, was Janko. Janko went vice versa. He took poetics and tried to adapt it to the Tractatus Coislinianus. So the third method is a reconstruction of the Corpus Aristotelianum. So if we want to find some proofs about existence of the lost book of comedy, we have to study complete writings of Aristotle. Political, ethical, practical, because this politics, poetics, ethics, rhetorics, and poetics belongs to the practical philosophy of Aristotle. You have to study Organon. You have to study his biology, everything, because actually Greeks invented cryptography. When you read Thucydides, and I did it, everything is written in certain layers, and you have to put one layer out of the certain writings and to connect with a layer that belongs to some other writings. So Aristotle is unavoidable figure if we want to talk about theater, because my final thesis is that all this showing up in a book of poetics, it's about the human nature. The tragedy is a metaphor for a noble human nature, and the comedy is a metaphor for a common, simple human nature that is not adapted according to highest moral principles, to the good. Because people used to say, oh, I give my best of it. No, there is no best, the best, non-existable. Because only what we have in this life is the notion of good. The best, we have to be towards to be driven to the best. It's ideal, non-existable ideal. So, what we can do in our life, always craving to the good, to be good. So,
What about better?
Better. That's
Better,
only
best.
for linguists and their grammar. They would have no job without the comparison. So,
That's good.
no, he said.
That's not better.
He says always good, 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 good. Probably good, although his name Aristotle means the best telos, the best purpose, the best. probably the best is reserved only for him. Therefore, he earns title the philosopher. Thank you very much.
And now I would like to welcome Alistair Martin Smith, a mentor at Toronto University in Canada. Thank you.
It's called Yes. While we're getting started, I just wanted to thank you. What can I do with this? This one. Okay, thank you. While we're getting started, I just wanted to thank Olga and Gregory and Thomas for this this moment that we are here present.
Like your game, you stand in front of the sun, so you have to go because we cannot see.
That here.
You cannot see what
Because I am
you got in front. That's right.
technology. You see, I am not really here. That's replacing me. And so I'm superfluous. But my background is in educational theater, and so my first impulse is to say to you, please stand and push all your chairs to the side and make a circle. Stand. But no, that's not what this is about. So I will take my place now.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Are we feeling that our fear level has subsided to some extent?
I mean, just I could not see.
Okay. Well, as we get started, I've entitled this topic Heterotopia, and I will give a definition of heterotopia here from Foucault, which is essential to what I have to say today, because I believe that while we visited the theater of Stratos this morning and all stood there behind the fence and looked at something that was there, we really weren't experiencing Stratos unless we imagined a production of Greek theater taking place and imagined 6,000 people there and imagined the gods being channeled into us, which would transform our reality. And that's in fact what theater does. And Foucault, I think, has captured this sense in which a heterotopia is a place which is outside of our sense of place, our reality of place. It is a place where our culture is represented, contested, and most importantly, inverted. In other words, what we live every day, our daily reality, is somehow turned on its head, which allows other things to happen. And one of those other things, I think Hugh really hit the nail on the head when he said that when we focus our attention outside of ourselves, then we transcend ourselves. And I think that's really what the theater experience is all about. So, to get started, that's Foucault's take on heterotopia. Now, here is Getty Images' take on the Theater of Dionysus. Well, we know that's not the Theater of Dionysus. The Theater of Dionysus was a place which was alive with the play I'm going to talk about today, which is Aeschylus's Oresteia. And in 458 BC, you have to imagine that took place in that space. I believe that theater and democracy are so intimately connected that without theater there would be no democracy. I firmly believe that. Pisistratus, when he started the great festival Dionysia, brought all the four tribes, which were often at odds with each other, together to share the same space. And suddenly consciousness was changed, was transformed. And then within a generation, democracy started, the movement. Where did it come from? That's where it came from, I believe. The Greeks also had a sense of intergenerational justice. We know that because the plays themselves, because the Oresteia talks about, the transformation of the curse of the house of Atreus across several generations, and how that curse is put to an end by Athena when she establishes the court of the Areopagus. And in a sense declares that Orestes is innocent of killing his mother. I think Orestes is a figure that we have to really think about in terms of how his struggle relates to our own struggle in life. He was put into an impossible position. How many of you have felt that? That you were in an impossible position, you didn't know what to do. On the one hand, he was told by Apollo that he had to avenge the death of his father Agamemnon, who his mother and her lover Aegisthus murdered when he returned from the Trojan War. So Aeschylus doesn't focus on the war itself, he focuses on the homecoming. And I think this particular event is resonant for me because it's about a homecoming. You're coming home to your village. You're coming and remembering your grandparents and their impossible struggle to found a new life in a new country. And that's breathtaking. So what did Orestes do? On the one hand, Apollo said, you've got to avenge your father. On the other hand, he knew that if he did that, the Erinyes, the Furies, would pursue him to the death. How to choose? But he did choose. He chose to murder his mother. In a way, because he didn't know what the outcome was. The Furies did pursue him. They drove him mad. And yet, he believed, he had faith that somehow he could get through this, and he did. He had the courage to go to Athens and submit to this court in the final play. So, intergenerational justice, how can we leave the world in a better situation, in a better condition than the world we receive? That is our burden. Why is the avant-garde and productions of the avant-garde so significant? Here's one, Robert Ick's Oresteia, which was performed in London in 2015. He has chosen to focus on Clytemnestra. You can see there with her children, Orestes and Electra, and Agamemnon. They're trying to explain why he killed their daughter, Iphigenia, in order, and sacrificed her for winds so that the Greek army could sail to Troy to fight the Trojan War. How do you explain that? You know, how do you excuse yourself from doing that? And maybe that's kind of fate. You do what you have to do. But the play is really about, for me, Orestes' struggle. It's not so much about was he right in sacrificing his daughter, was he wrong? It's really about Orestes' struggle to come to terms with his madness. So activism. Aeschylus in the three plays of the trilogy shows how the rule by kings is ineffective. Agamemnon comes back to Argos and is destroyed basically by Aegisthus and his wife Clytemnestra. He wants to make everything well again. He wants to somehow make up for his 10-year absence fighting the war, but he can't, and nobody believes that he can. And then, of course, we see that the rule of tyrants is also ineffective. That Aegisthus and Clytemnestra want to set up a kingdom there to rule after, doing away with Agamemnon. They can't. And so democracy, Aeschylus argues, is giving the power, sharing the power with the people. And that was also fraught with difficulty because when, in 461, Ephialtes took the power from the ruling families in the Areopagus and gave it to the people so that the aristocratic families were only left with a certain amount of power, the power to decide murder trials. They were very upset by that. And Ephialtes was assassinated. So, level of fear, very high in Athens when Aeschylus wrote this play. So what was he trying to say? Well, Cimon, I think if I pronounce that correctly, Cimon was a very successful general who fought, assisted Sparta, fought against the Persians, and because he was one who wanted the rule of the tyrant, he was not popular with those who wished democracy. And so he was ostracized, sent away from Athens in 461. And it seems as though by vindicating Orestes in the Eumenides, at the end of the trilogy, he is saying, well, maybe it's okay to forgive Cimon because we kind of need him in case there's another war with the Persians or with the Spartans or what have you. And so perhaps he was just saying, well, think about it, I don't think there's any single political message here in the play. I think it's layers and layers and layers of things going on simultaneously. But that definitely is in there. There's a political message there, I think. Although we can't say he was a left-winger or right-winger because those terms don't really make any sense in ancient Greece. They're contemporary terms. So, ancient Greek theater essential to Greek democracy. Aeschylus actually, even though we know democracy was not equality in the sense that everybody had a vote, women were denied the vote, slaves were denied the vote, foreigners were denied the vote, but he gave voice to those people on stage. Clytemnestra in the myth is not the one who kills Agamemnon, but in Aeschylus she does, so that we can hear why she did it. We give her voice, we hear her feelings, why she was upset that her daughter Iphigenia was murdered by Agamemnon. 2 minutes. So, moving right along. My urge is always towards community because it's eluded me, except in brief moments, much of my life. So I want to see this play done again. I think it has a vital message for democracy and for social justice, and I really would like to see this happen. I don't know if it will. That's up to the gods, right? It's not up to me. But I would like to end with a quote from Peter Brook, who wrote in The Empty Space in 1968 about the Holy Theater. The stage is in many ways a sacred space. It is set apart. No, that's not the quote. That's not Peter Brook. This is a beautiful quote. Let me finish it. Set apart from the ordinary, marked off by the definite boundaries as a sanctuary in the ancient world. The close link between the stage and the sacred space leads us to assume that as an extension of the latter, the stage too is a therapeutic place. And I encourage you to read a wonderful book by Carolisa Hartigan called Performance and Cure, Drama and Healing in Ancient Greece and Contemporary America. But to close, here's Peter Brook from The Empty Space. The theater is the last forum where idealism is still an open question. Many audiences over the world will answer positively from their own experience that they have seen the face of the invisible through an experience on stage that transcended their experience in life. They will maintain that Oedipus, or Berenice, or Hamlet, or the Three Sisters, performed with beauty and love, fires the spirit and gives them a reminder that daily drabness is not necessarily all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now let's go to our final speakers.
It's okay.
Artemis from World Theatre Party in USA. And she's going to talk about consent in Shakespeare's Pericles, a princess born on the sea speaks.
In Shakespeare's Pericles, Marina speaks out to save her life from a would-be murderer and her chastity from pirates and would-be Mytilenean clients. Born in a tempest, she readily says no, initially. After wielding influence, Marina's lack of consent to marriage confounds. Did Marina accept the proposal of the Mytilenean governor, who allowed her to play music and run a school? Did she love him? Or did she acquiesce to her father's wishes? Pericles draws on John Gower's Apollonius attire from Confessio Armantis. As Shakespeare recasts Gower's story, Marina in Pericles and Thaisis in Apollonius are emotionally intelligent heroines who model consent for young women today. Gower tells of Apollonius' shipwreck off the coast of Pentapolis in North Africa. When Apollonius wins the gymnastical competition, the king of Pentapolis invites him to dinner. However, since Apollonius had discovered the secret incest between King Antiochus and his fiancée, at that time he was so sad that the king of Pentapolis sent his nameless daughter, who had done all she can to glad that sorry man. Apollonius played the harp and sang too, which charmed the king, and he hired him as a tutor. Gower detailed how the delighted young girl was burning for love for Apollonius, so much that she became ill. Instead of speaking to her father, she cannily wrote a letter. As Gower says, the shame which is in a maid with speech dare not be unlocked, but in writing it may be spoke. So I write to you, father. If her father objected, she preferred to be disowned than to marry anyone else. On their wedding night she became pregnant, and Apollonius sailed to Tyre with his wife, but she died giving birth to Thaisa. Apollonius preserved her body in a chest and cast it out to sea. After the Ephesian healer, Cerimon, found and revived Apollonius' wife, she became an abbess. We'll come back to Ephesus at the end. Although Thaisa is Apollonius' wife instead of daughter in Pericles, not only did the king of Pentapolis, his nameless daughter, consent to the marriage, but she also risked disinheritance to marry him. In both tales, Apollonius and Pericles consign their daughters, Thaisa and Marina respectively, to the care of a high-ranking couple in Taurus. The wife in each couple becomes jealous of Apollonius and of Pericles' daughters, who exceed their own daughters in beauty and musicality. She sends her servant to kill the daughters of Apollonius and Pericles, and each young woman argues against the attempted murder. And Apollonius, as Theophilus threatened to kill Thaisa, she protested, and he replied, "Though thus, my lady Dionyse hath bade, thou shalt be murdered in this stead," crying, "Ha, mercy, help for goddess' sake." No, goddess. Apollonius, his daughter Thaisa, delays this attempted murder by using her words. Similarly, as the would-be murderer pressures Marina to pray before her death, Pericles' daughter delays Leonine's murder attempt. She reasons with him, "Why will you kill me?" Upon discovering the wife behind the plot, she probes, "Why would she have me killed?" I never did her hurt in all my life. When reason failed, she appealed to the would-be murderer's good nature and begged Leonine for her life. Apollonius' daughter Thaisa and Pericles' Marina attracted pirates through their cries, who kidnapped them and sold them to a Mytilenean brothel. Both young virgins preserved their chastity by reasoning with men to whom they would be pimped as prostitutes and appealed to the powers that be. And Apollonius of Tyre, despite Leonine's repeated attempts to, quote, bereave her maidenhood, Thaisa's woeful plaints allowed her to keep herself from shame. In Pericles, Marina wishes that she were dead rather than to live as a prostitute. When the god says, "You are light into my hands, where you are like to live," Marina admits, "The more my fault, to escape his hands where I would like to die." The god retorts, "Aye, and you shall live in pleasure." Instead of consenting, Marina says, "No." The god refuses to take Marina's no for an answer and says, "Come away, you young foolish sapling, you must be bowed. If it please the gods to defend you by men, then men must comfort you, feed you, and stir you up." The imp invites, "Come your ways." Marina vows to Diana, the Roman counterpart of the Ephesian Artemis, "Be fires hot, knives sharp, or waters deep. Untied I still my virgin knot will keep. Diana, aid my purpose." These young women guarded their virginity through reason and self-assertion against panders and their johns. Pericles follows the cues on Marina's epitaph on her tombstone in Taurus, to Mytilene. In contrast, learning of Thaisa's, his daughter's, presumed death in Taurus, Apollonius falls sick, and his sailors just happen to dock in Mytilene. Apollonius' daughter Thaisa proposes a school to teach new things which no other woman can in this new land. Of course, she's in Mytilene. There's a reference to Sappho. After Apollonius arrives, the prince sent Thaisa to Apollonius to play the harp. As Apollonius recovered, Thaisa falleth into words with him, and when he asked about her parentage and upbringing, Thaisa hints to lead Apollonius to know that she is his daughter. Shakespeare expanded on this in Pericles. Lysimachus praised Marina as he sent her to comfort Pericles. Marina agreed, "Only if none but I and my companion maid shall be suffered to come near him." And she confesses to Pericles that she hath endured grief. "Might equal yours." Startled, Pericles claimed, "My fortunes, parentage, good parentage, equal to mine? What do you say?" As she entrusted Pericles with her secret of her parentage, birth, and upbringing, Pericles realizes that Marina is indeed his daughter. Diana answers Marina's prayers and guides Pericles in a dream to reclaim his wife in Ephesus. Before he leaves, Pericles divines that Lysimachus seeks to wed Marina. Lysimachus talks to her father. "Sir, lend me your arm." Pericles invites her to join them. "Come, my Marina," but she says nothing. After charting the course of her life, Marina's silence stuns. Later at Ephesus, Thaisa and Pericles joyfully reconcile in Diana's temple. Marina speaks her last line to her mother. "My heart leaps to be gone into my mother's bosom." But she remains silent about her marriage. In Apollonius of Tyre, Thaisa tells her story, and Apollonius knows that she is his daughter. Thaisa, in contrast, intimates her feelings for the prince at the Athenagoras. When the prince learns that Thaisa is Apollonius' daughter, he first asks Apollonius to marry her. Unlike Lysimachus and Pericles, Gower notes that Prince Athenagoras asks Thaisa about possible marriage. He thought his heart moved to break, till he made to this maid spake, and to her father and also. She wedded him as her lord. Only after the prince spoke to Apollonius and his daughter did he marry her. Thaisa, like Marina, remains mute. Since Prince Athenagoras allowed her to run the school and loved her, Gower and subsequently Shakespeare implied that these young women agreed to marry their respective princes. Thaisa and Apollonius, and Marina and Pericles speak out against assassins, pirates, bawds, and Johns. Thaisa speaks less, but retains her right to choose a husband. Perhaps due to the formality of the occasion in Apollonius, Thaisa writes rather than speaks to her father about her love for Apollonius. Further, Prince Athenagoras talked with Apollonius and his daughter about marriage. As assertive as Marina was to preserve her life in chastity, she seems to lose agency at the moment of her marriage. As Lysimachus and Pericles agree on the Mytilean governor's marriage, Marina stays silent after his proposal. Of course, had these young women failed to remain chaste, neither match could have been possible. Why do both young women lose their words suddenly? Both have a father figure who takes over the marriage negotiations. Moreover, marriage confers rights upon a husband that are not afforded to a wife, certainly in medieval and later in Renaissance society. Further, status may play a role in speech. The latent princesses readily assert themselves to those they perceive as subordinates. As they fend for themselves, they speak. Once they have a family, they are silent. Thus, by comparing women's agency in Pericles and Apollonius, their ideas inform understanding of a woman's right in the face of danger to speak today. Thank you.
I would like to thank all of our speakers today for their interesting contributions, and we have any questions. Yes?
I have a question for Artemis.
Yes.
Artemis, I couldn't help observing the connection between you and the goddess Artemis at Ephesus, and how she, in a way, in both Shakespeare and Apollonius, seems to be directing the events from a distance. The sense of fate, of bringing people together, there's that magnificent recognition scene between Pericles and Marina is awesome because Pericles has overcome, in a sense, his own mental illness, because he despairs when he loses his wife, who he thinks is dead, but she's not. And he loses his daughter, and what does his life mean anymore? And he goes into this Great Depression only to be brought out of it by Marina, who recognizes her father, and he recognizes his daughter. And so I'm just wondering what sense fate has played in your life in bringing you here to talk about the goddess.
Oh, that is interesting, and I do like that, she's directly praying to the goddess and talking to Diana.
Write a book about it.
I actually will. It's coming.
You don't have to read it now.
No, but
Perhaps it will be disturbed if you say all that.
No, well, but I will tell you, actually, I'm very excited to be here because when I was quite young, I came to Greece, and I really loved the country, and I spent about 2 months here. And when I went back to the United States, I decided that I needed to be Artemis, and I legally changed my name. So I'm not Greek, but I'm honorary Greek. So that's part of the reason I feel such kinship with this story.
Any other?
They are kind of.
Yeah.
They are close. But when I said no, let me say a few words. First of all, I like to thank all the speakers, participants, and for their contribution. We chose ancient theaters. It could be any other. There's no fate. I mean, we had to choose something. We built that along Hughes because he was supposed to come 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and as Greek, and especially from the locality, you cannot trust him. so I mean, even now I said I don't think he was going to come, and finally he flew from Paris. And again, as a Greek, he's a free rider. I mean, what the best culture we have. I mean, now all the other speakers, of course, we had to choose ancient theaters. They relate, they don't relate. I was surprised by George because he had been here that he wanted to present about theater. I was disturbed, say why he wants to talk all the time, and I agree. But then I found Lancet that was exactly. I loved his slides when he said it to me, and I checked it, and I found that there is a relation between plays and theaters and arts in general. And of course, David Wick again. I know so many years, he said something that we can relate to. Because we have anything about ancient Rome, and he's an expert in ancient Rome. So we tied it all together, and we said we can have a presentation on ancient theater. Now for next year, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to comment on that. I had similar ideas with Hugh, but when I heard from him, I changed my mind. So the impact, you know how they so I have to go antithetical to what other people say, because that's how we improve our knowledge. Anyway, there are many things. There was some mention about theater and democracy. Actually, we plan to organize something about democracy and then theater. There is a causality test that we have to perform. I'm an economist, a proud economist, not like Daphne, that he teaches business ethics, because I would love to teach business and economics, but in a theatrical way. I mean, you can do that. Actually, we are full of myths in economics, in a good sense. The myths they have, Robinson Crusoe, for example, we use it a lot in economics, and so there is a lot of about the rhetorics in economics, so an excellent book. So there is a relationship between these things, and I think like Aristotle, since you like Aristotle, I think he is the one to blame for killing the disciplines, the scientific, because what he did, he divided it. He said separate fields, and then we follow Aristotle, and we don't communicate. So he is responsible for that. He was able to do a lot of contributions, medical, economics, whatever, philosophy, but philosophy is everything. So after Aristotle, we start saying, I'm going to be a biologist, that you mentioned. I'm going to do this and this. And I think that was the negative impact that Aristotle had in our science. So we cannot communicate, which is very good. Anyway, so democracy, the causality, I come back. The causality is that you said something about democracy was born because of the theater. I can reverse that. Theater was born because of it. Because people were forced to get together. What you saw today was not a theater, it was an assembly space. People were getting there. There was a commonwealth of Akarnanias, that they had foreign policy. We don't have a lot of evidence, but we can say that they had a common foreign policy, a defense policy, a common currency. Actually, we found that for archaeological side. So it was not a theater per se. And maybe I can say, I can imagine 3,000 years ago, that people from all these mountains, if you walk up there, because they walked, by the way, or they used mules over there. But you can see it takes them hours to go to some place. For what reasons? To see a performance? I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I'm not going to waste so much time. I mean, the opportunity cost is huge. Most probably for something else. And something else is my livelihood. So it's military plan. Oh, I mean, I'm guessing. So since they were there, they say, why don't we play something? There were so many people. So yeah, I reverse your causality. And this is an interpretation, of course, because you use the word I believe. So I believe the other way. Now, so we plan to have something about democracy, and maybe we can bring some, but then I got another idea, say, democracy without Athens is impossible. David knows about this idea. So we like to develop a workshop on democracy. And then maybe as part of that, we can bring to Akarnania to see the Commonwealth of Akarnania and to see how democracy exists outside that. And of course, it will relate because our starting place of democracy will be Pnyx. It's the western side of the Parthenon hill, where the ancient Athenians would get together and talk about these things. Anyway, that's just the future. So next year, most probably, we'll have something on democracy. And of course, we have a section, very tiny one, small one, inexistent one, about theater and democracy. We'll invite you as well to contribute. Thank you very much for being here. Now we hope for the other alternative. You know, the combination here was, it's a mountains, it's a sea. So we have, last night, you had, because I should say that I follow a tradition, I mean, it has nothing to do with, it's not metaphysical, it's not real. We mourn for 40 days, because I lost my mother, so for 40 days we have to mourn. So I'm not going out and enjoy myself with food and drink. So our president will be there. You know, when you were sitting, you and Thomas, I was watching your moves, and you look so alike in your moves, the way that you sit, and they say you took it from the mountains here, so you cannot get rid of your DNA. That's why I said, and of course you are like this, like a shepherd, You're a very proud shepherd, like Isildur. Isildur was a shepherd. Who mentioned Isildur?
That's the question.
Isildur was a shepherd, and he wrote his monument Theogony in Works and Days. Of course, it's my favorite poet, not because he comes from the area, because he spent some time in Athens as well, because he says a lot of truth, especially in Works and Days. Thank you very much. I hope I'll see you again next year in Sardinia, and we'll continue.